We have this story from the Post Millennial. Tucker Carlson reveals producer who called Biden a wannabe dictator was punished by Fox News and resigned 24 hours later. Good for you, dude. Good for you. Standing up. Just days after Fox News displayed and then apologized for a chyron calling Biden a wannabe dictator, Tucker Carlson slammed his former employer. Actually, I think legally current. I don't know. Is Tucker saying he was fired? Anyway, they go on to mention the chyron wannabe dictator. Fox's statement saying that the words were up for less than 30 seconds. Inside Fox, the women who run the network panicked. Carlson said they first scolded the producer who put the banner on the screen, and then less than a day later, he resigned. He had been at Fox for more than a decade. He was considered one of the most capable people in the building. He offered to stay for the customary 2 weeks, but Fox told him to clear out his desk and leave immediately. The company then issued a public apology for the chyron that was on the screen for less than 30 seconds, stating the chyron was taken down immediately, adding that the issue was addressed. That was all true, but it was not enough to save Fox News from the ensuing scandal. For a time in the rest of the media, Fox's assessment of Donald Trump's arrest seemed to overshadow Trump's arrest itself, said Carlson. Carlson noted perennial MSNBC guest and full-time Ukraine promoter Alexander Vindman, who called for Fox News to be banned, on all military bases. It was a really great point brought up by Tucker Carlson, because all of the lies from CNN and MSNBC, and where was he to say that those networks should be banned from military bases as well? But here, I have an idea. I'm gonna give a shout out to Daily Wire, put them on the spot a little bit. We'll put Timcast on the spot a little bit. Let's see how many of the Fox News employees we can hire. The ones that don't want to work there, that don't agree with them, that actually care about American values, reject the lies and the manipulations. And I say the Daily Wire. In fact, I'm not really putting them on the spot. I think the Daily Wire should start poaching Fox employees right now. Just start hitting them up, and we'll do the same. You know, we'll if you're leaving Fox News, you don't want to work there anymore because they're full of it, because they're lying. We do not here at Timcast have any kind of DEI advocacy programs or requirements or anything like that. And so, yeah, there you go. Opportunity awaits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important. One thing
Is Freedom Tunes going to be hiring some...
Look, I mean, if artists want to reach out to us who are making animation that's decent and who we could bring onto our team, yeah, we're expanding. So hit me up. If you're like an artist, if you're a cartoonist who's qualified to animate, please send us a message. And also, if you're someone who wants to support the team that we have, who are artists creating non-woke content, creating conservative content, please become a member at freedomtunes.com. It helps us to keep everybody employed. But I want to mention here is that when Tucker was first pushed out of Fox, I was cautiously optimistic, and I knew that he was going to be fine, but I was a little bit worried because, as I mentioned earlier, Fox tells conservatives what they're allowed to believe. And having somebody like Tucker pushed out of the network means that Overton window shifts back to the left a little bit. And so I was concerned by that, but I'm glad to see that Fox, which is effectively controlled opposition, is starting to show its cracks, and the response to it is very decentralized. If you didn't like what the mainstream media was saying, for a very long time, Fox was your only option, at least for visual media, if that's how you were consuming news. Nowadays, you have so many different options. It's wonderful. There are so many different podcasters and journalists online who are delivering information to the people from their own angle, whether they're just not far left, whether they're a more traditional liberal, a conservative, someone who's further to the right. You have a lot of different people who are not all under one umbrella giving us information that we never would have had if it was just up to Fox.
I got an idea. Here's what we at Timcast will do. We will make mandatory employee training. Yes. And it will say things like, have you considered having a 4th of July barbecue and perhaps grilling and having a nice non-Bud Light beer? Have you considered reaching out to your friends and explaining why America is the greatest country on earth? Perhaps you should fly an American flag on your property. I think that's what we'll do.
I think we need to train out the implicit anti-white racist bias, and everyone who gets hired, we need to have presentations and stuff to sort
hire
of
brainwash
them. Yeah. If you hire them from one of these organizations, you have to do it. It's a notoriously racist organization. It's racist against white people. Got to deprogram them.
It is something funny that I've thought about. There are people who worked for Vice and BuzzFeed, and I've tweeted like, I'm so sorry to hear you're getting laid off. You know, we're hiring and we're expanding and looking for people, so feel free to reach out. They never do, of course. But like, what's going to happen when there's no game in town anymore? When you're like a BuzzFeed writer with no skills, they're going to be voting for communism because the only thing they can do is write nonsense listicles and other fake news. All they can do is write the fake article they were told to write. But what are they going to do? There's going to be nowhere to work.
They're going to go to academia. That's where everyone who, fails in politics goes. I just think that's the only place for them.
But then what happens when the college bubble bursts, right? Because that's a very real possibility, especially with money getting tighter. If we see a massive economic crash, I mean, some of the first degrees
Joe
to
Biden
go are going to be these
forgive all your student loans. He'll keep that up forever.
Of course. He'll be able to continue to do it forever.
I'm not being entirely unserious. I mean, even with this Colorado Sun article that we're talking about with this reference, that journalist is quoting a study where he's like, and look, a professor at a university said it's true. I mean, these relationships between journalism and academia could be really powerful and strong. It could be a great way to get new information out there. It's just so often both sources are corrupt and therefore release terrible information that then the public is supposed to consume without questioning.
Well, totalitarian regimes always need their academic sounding lackeys. So in that sense, you'll always have the university system as it stands for as long as the regime continues to exist. However, every single individual person being pushed through it, I don't know that that's going to be sustainable. In fact, I know it's not going to be sustainable. It's a question of how many sacrifices the system is going to force itself to make in order to continue it. Because it's a very valuable tool, right? Not only do you have 12 years of government indoctrination, but you throw another 4 years on top of that, where people are being given an even more vicious and depraved version of the same far left ideology that kids are set up to believe in their first 12 years of education. And you end up with very highfalutin academic sounding serfs. So it's a valuable venture to them, but I really think at some point they're just not going to be able to afford it, and then there will be less professorships available.
Money's not a real thing, though. I mean, we just give huge loans from, what is it, 94% of all student loans are from the federal government that we then give to people to go into debt to then say we need more government to solve the problems I am now facing because I'm massively in debt and theoretically overqualified for jobs I don't really want anyways, which is causing me depression, which is causing me loneliness. Like, we are pushing people to a cliff. I don't say me specifically, I don't think anyone in this room, but the system that is currently in place pushes people towards a cliff that makes them desperate and makes them compliant.
Well, the amount of
totally
government, the amount of government money also pushing academia that will hire all these folks with government funds to do these studies. So that University of Colorado study probably got a $50,000 grant from the Department of whatever at the Colorado State House, and it just creates this cycle. I mean, $1.6 trillion had to go to something.
Well, I was just going to say the National Bureau of Economic Research has said this before, that universities respond to the widened availability of easy money and more people being able to get loans by raising their prices. So the whole thing does feed itself. But at the same time, those dollars, even though they can print as many of them as they want, they represent real world resources. And the more the economy contracts and the more difficult things get, the harder it's going to be for them to sustain it.
I think we do want to see cities die. I thought about this, and now I think, we probably should. Because we were talking about it last night in terms of how do you teach kids hard work. And I know you know this, Daniel, because you're a farmer and you've got animals. And I was telling the story where we had someone, I was showing someone the property, and we've got insane fruit. We've got mulberries. There's probably 700,000 mulberries just within like a couple hundred feet. It's bonkers. You look at this tree, it's just food for days.
Yeah.
You're not going to, survive on just mulberries, but there's Allegheny blackberry, there's apples, there's pears, there's walnuts. We got pawpaws. There is just food growing everywhere whether we want it to or not. And it's interesting that people who grow up in cities don't experience that. I certainly did. We had we had a plum and a cherry tree when I was a little kid. And so it's like, oh yeah, food grows. But people who live in these cities are attached to these corporations. They don't know how to survive without having a boss pay them money. And that was always something really crazy to me when people would say stuff like, I need a job. And I'd be like, no, you need to make money. Like, where's this disconnect? There were people in my life who would be like, I'm having a hard time because I can't find a job. And I said, okay, well then go do a thing to make money. But they don't know how. These humans have never experienced doing things on your own. They lived in a house where the food was just there. They got old enough. They got a job. The boss gave them the money in exchange for the work. And then when they lost that job, they said, well, now what? For me, my mentality was always, you don't need a job. You need to convince someone legally to exchange the money in their hands to your hands. Like, you need someone to have money in their hand to go like this, and then you take it and say thank you. Now figure out the safe, legal, and moral way to make that happen. And that is, you can trade stuff, you can perform. I was busking in the street, you can do fundraising, whatever.
Yeah.
But people in these cities have become weird mechanized laborers, and their existence they only exist to work for someone else. And that's, in my opinion, a very serious problem. And it's probably, if you look at the school system and how it's just basically churning out workers with this factory-like system where the bell rings and everything, I think that may be it. So you know what?
Well, even worse, non-workers.
Maybe now, maybe we just need these cities to actually fall apart so that people are forced to realign themselves with the world and then actually start, for one, realizing if you want food, you have to work.
Well, I think
you can make the food.
There's a huge problem, I think, with the younger, you young people with the younger generation, that the vast majority of them for a living want to be TikTokers or YouTubers. And not that we would ever make fun of YouTubers, right? Who would do things online.
I think they're idiots. I'm a journalist.
But you have to admit, like, what you are all bringing to the table is a certain skill set that people say it's worth my 2 hours right now, because the value I am getting for that is greater than, and it's not a money exchange, although there are members of Timcast.com, but it is a time exchange. I don't think a lot of young people see, well, what is the skill I am bringing? It's like, well, I want the fame, I want the notoriety, I want the clicks, I want the viewers. But what is the skill you are bringing to the platform? Whether it's TikTok, whether it's YouTube, whatever it is. Well, are you showing people how to lift weights? Are you giving people an idea of how to think about the world? It's like, no, I just want to be a YouTuber. Well, I think that's the bad thing.
This is where the effect of decades of reality television are starting to set in, right? Yeah. People think, I want the fame, I want the clicks, I want the notoriety, I want the attention, and I want people to want to know what I'm doing and saying. And so they exchange their privacy for attention online. I mean, so many influencers are actually just kind of very serious, open bloggers, right? Yeah. They'll tell you everything, almost like they'll show you the pictures of their houses. They'll show you the inside, outside, their kids crying. Like, and if this is the way you want to live your life, I'm personally not comfortable doing that, but it does eventually, for a lot of people, turn into their own reality TV show that then brands are like, oh, we notice a lot of people like you, so we'll give you money. And they're able to cultivate a business off of selling their privacy. They don't sell a skill, they sell themselves.
Well, so this idea of people becoming decadent and lazy and cities dying eventually, it's certainly not a new one. And it makes sense, right? Because the family is the building block of society. And we see families follow this trend. When a family becomes extremely wealthy, usually within a few generations, that wealth is gone, because you had patriarch of the family who rose up from nothing and was able to develop a fortune for his descendants, and perhaps his sons build upon that and they accumulate an even greater fortune. But at some point, they end up having so much to the point where they're not as concerned with the economic consequences of not putting in the hard work that needs to be put in to maintain that kind of a fortune. They become lazy and decadent. They start spending that money without sufficiently adding to it. And within 2 or 3 generations, it's all gone. And I believe there are studies that actually show within about 3 generations, most family fortunes dissipate. Yep. So we shouldn't be shocked to see that happen on a larger scale with these cities. Many of them were extremely wealthy at one point, but what happened was the people became complacent. They became lazy. They became more concerned with consuming than producing, and that's why they're falling apart. We are just seeing the dissipation of intergenerational wealth on a broad scale.
The Rockefeller great-grandchildren are the ones who are probably my age, maybe a little bit younger, older, etc. So John D., I think one of the greatest Americans in the history of our nation, right? Standard Oil. Wealthiest man in the history of the world by far, way wealthier than Gates and in proportion to the society and to
percent of GDP
and percent of GDP. Just you can't fathom the amount of money. But his great grandchildren now are the one who are disowning him. Climate change activists. We are ashamed of our great grandfather's legacy. Whatever money's left, it's like, well, you're going to give it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're so embarrassed by him.
like
Like, give it up. Like, go get a job. Go flip burgers. It's like, well, no. Like, I want like what great grandpa left to me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm ashamed of it, but I'm not gonna go be like you people. Well, it always makes me laugh.
And I'm not the biggest fan of Rockefeller, but the reality is he saved the whales, right? If we weren't using oil, people still would have been hunting whales, and they would have hunted them to extinction. It's true. He saved the man.
But he never gets any credit for it.
Never.
Nope.
Yeah.
The original Greenpeace activist saved the whales.
Exactly. But this is the thing. He saved it by producing something instead of shouting at people.
Yeah.
So then that can't be celebrated.
Now there's a thought. Make things.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.